Hey folks, I'm Spencer, and on today's episode of Cult Mania we are looking at Ben Wheatley's tremendously unsettling Kill List. This was Wheatley's second feature film, following on from his low-budget British gangster film Down Terrace.
1, 2, 3. Abracadabra.
Written by Wheatley and his partner Amy Jump, Kill List follows Jay, a middle-aged dad who also happens to be a contract killer. Having not worked for 8 months due to a bad back, his relationship with his wife is circling the drain. But then his partner Gal turns up for what is one of the most uncomfortable dinner parties that you will see on screen and offers him a job. He doesn't initially want to take it, but then he comes around to the idea and the two set off to go and kill 3 people. Now, what I've just said doesn't sound like a horror film, but Kill List definitely is. It just also happens to be a kitchen sink drama and a British crime drama. The performances are all very grounded. Jay, as played by Neil Maskell, feels incredibly tethered to the real world, even as other parts of the plot start to get very weird. It helps that Jay has this quality of feeling like someone who could be your neighbour, someone that you could see over the fence and have a laugh with, which helps to make all of the scenes later on when he's being incredibly violent and brutalising people feel that much more uncomfortable. His partner Gal is played by Michael Smiley, who has that same quality. He feels like a normal person, he feels like someone you could bump into in the street. And when the two of them are together, you get some absolutely fantastic dialogue, and they can be absolutely hilarious together, which really helps to sort of pick you out of the really oppressive tone the film has, at least for a couple of seconds. I mean, there's a fantastic sequence in a hotel restaurant, which I'm not going to spoil, but you will almost certainly have a good laugh at that. I mean, I've loved both of these actors ever since watching this film. I'm always so pleased to see them turn up in anything, and it is all thanks to Kill List. Mariana Bering rounds out the main cast as Jay's wife Shell. She's an incredibly interesting character because I think she brings out the empathy from the audience. I don't think without her you would particularly care about Jay or Gal. I think knowing that you have someone who feels slightly more normal really helps the audience settle into this world. And I think actually you probably adopt her point of view more as the film goes on than Jay's, even though you spend far more time with Jay. The film's cinematography helps to ground these performances. It maintains a realistic, gritty tone. DP Laurie Rose relies heavily on handheld camera to drag you deep into the moment. It often feels like you are someone in that room, that someone is going to turn to you in a moment and ask you a question. This is probably helped in part by the fact that Rose and Wheatley frequently use Grey Gardens as a reference point for their cinematography. Little side note, I really love the use of a lot of cutting to black within Kill List and overlaying sound from one scene over the imagery from another. I think these techniques don't get used enough, and they do help with the sort of off-kilter, unsettled tone of the film. To my eye, the film has 2 key colour palettes. You have incredibly sort of washed out greys and whites in the daytime, and then you have these really sort of sickly yellows for the night time. I think this works really well because it does feel like you're in the really horrible, rough neighbourhoods of England, especially in those night sequences, but they're just ever so slightly off, they're ever so slightly stylised. Like the yellow light is that much brighter or yellower than it is in real life, that it just feels like you're in this ever so slightly nightmarish world rather than the world that we all know. It all makes it feel just that extra bit alienating or unsettled. And unsettled really is the word. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in a family home, a grotty lockup, or out in the sticks. There is always just this perpetual layer of unsettled uncomfortableness. I mean, I think this is really helped by literally the first thing we see is a screaming match between Jay and Shell. That really does help set the mood for the rest of the film. Tonally, I don't remember a film that manages to maintain this sort of uncomfortable pit of your stomach feeling this well. I think this is all helped by the fact that the film's weirder moments, and sometimes they are really weird, are just drip-fed to you. You only get one every now and again, and it means that you're sort of lulled back down into a sense of normality just for something weird to catch you off guard again. The weird never sort of overpowers you throughout the film up until the very end. Sort of this slow, accumulating sense of weird that goes alongside the general sort of dread.
They're bad people. They should suffer.
That's not to say that there is nothing outright shocking in here. Of course there is. There are some incredibly violent sequences, and they are incredibly well executed. The gore is incredibly good, especially for this sort of low budget film. I mean, there is a sequence involving a hammer that is just wince-inducing. I mean, I was watching it with other people the last time I watched it, and I looked over and could see them squirming a bit. But then, not every unpleasant sequence in the film is a visceral, horrific piece of gore. So often, you know something's happened off screen, or the characters can see something but you can't see it. And I think it is that perfect thing if your mind is coming up with far more disgusting or horrible things than the filmmakers were ever going to. The film's Jim Williams score really does help with all of this. I mean, whistling has never been more unsettling. I think the score is used so incredibly well because its job here is more to maintain that uncomfortable feeling when you are looking at things that are more mundane, or even that might in another film be more of like an action sequence. It's almost taking away that aspect of the sequence and replacing it with a sort of horrific, I know I keep saying the word, but uncomfortable is the perfect word. It just makes everything feel off and uncomfortable. I mean, I'm pretty sure you could put this soundtrack over anything and it would be unpleasant to watch and uncomfortable. I mean, let's try. I'm just going to smile for a minute, but with this soundtrack. Also, I mean, have you heard of Whale Song? I'm presuming most people will know what Whale Song is. Kill List has Shark Song. I mean, if that's not a reason to listen to the score, I don't know what is. I really do think that Kill List is one of the best British films to have come out since the year 2000, probably before then. I mean, it is in my list of best films. I think it's Ben Wheatley's best film. I think it perfectly shows why he is one of the best working British directors. The film holds up incredibly well to a repeat viewing. I mean, when I watched it to record this review, it must have been the 6th time I'd watched it, if not more. I think the first time you watch it, the sort of overpowering nature of the tone can mean that you miss how great the performances are, or there are little minutiae in the plot that just go by because you are watching it on an emotional level. I think there is a lot to analyse in the film. That being said, I still don't fully understand every part of the plot, but I quite like that. It's alienating in a nice way. I think you feel like the characters, you don't 100% understand it, and despite watching it loads of times, I still don't understand it. I'd recommend Kill List to anyone that wants to see something done differently with, well, pretty much any of the major genres of British cinema. That being said, I mean, it's certainly not for everyone. I mean, not everyone wants to be made to feel uncomfortable for 95 minutes. And there is one sequence that is incredibly uncomfortable, and it's all to do with making allusions to certain ideas. I'm trying not to give away too much, and I do think that sequence would push certain people's buttons quite a lot, but I think you would probably have given up on the film long before you got to that sequence if it was going to bother you. Sorry, I'm trying not to be spoilery, and I don't think it's not like a content warning type thing, because you don't see anything, but I'm trying to get my point across. Basically, just note that this isn't a film for people who are squeamish or worried about films getting into sort of darker themes and territory. The film is quite unrelenting that side of things. On a lighter note, if you are going to pick it up, I would recommend getting like the Blu-ray or DVD, because a Ben Wheatley commentary is always something to be cherished. You get 2 different commentary tracks on this, especially the one between Ben Wheatley and Amy Jump is great if you are someone who's interested in filmmaking, because it's a very casual chat, but you learn a lot about actually putting together a low-budget British film like that. Also, you might have noticed when I picked that up that it's signed, and Ben Wheatley still has my Sharpie. Or at least I hope he does. I mean, it was years ago that he signed it, but I like that I gave a Sharpie to a filmmaker. Anyway, that's just my opinion on the film. Let me know in the comments if you've seen Kill List, or if you are planning to see it now. Like and subscribe so that you don't miss any more of the videos, and I'll see you next time.